Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Recently, the Battlefield 6 developers sat down with IGN and did a very in-depth interview talking about various different elements of Battlefield 6, from gameplay design, console focus there on how that's going to impact gameplay, crossplay, cheating, cosmetics, all sorts of stuff here. We've got like nearly 20 questions of back and forth dialogue to go through here today that details a lot of pretty interesting Battlefield 6 details. So as we do dive into everything, if you guys enjoy the video, you find the information helpful, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. It's a fantastic way to help share the video around to new viewers. And if you are one of those new viewers, or maybe you have not subscribed yet, I've always got you covered with the latest intel you need to know for Battlefield 6. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. So first up here, IGN does want to talk a little bit about performance mode, fidelity mode, and console gameplay, and how they've really optimized it this year for Battlefield 6. IGN asks, what can you tell me about the differences in performance mode and fidelity on PlayStation 5? The devs answer saying, I think the answer in short is for performance mode, we want to make sure that we set high frame rate targets for all of our platforms. We want to make sure that we were at least 80 frames or above most of the time. Then we just dialed down performance settings until we were confident that we could give you that experience. Quality mode is basically just turning up all the quality features, higher resolution textures, fidelity of visual features, and that's the primary difference there. We kind of just turned everything on, but made sure we were still hitting at least 60 frames per second. We didn't want to just say turn on everything and then you're looking at a really framey game where it's super stuttery. We also wanted to make sure that we gave you the best possible visual fidelity that still hits 60 frames per second. Then for performance, we said, okay, let's raise that even higher, lower quality to the point where we get even better frames. I don't know if you could tell exactly. We did tune it based on platform and based on what we could turn on and off to get there. So I don't know that necessarily I remember all the exact things that are enabled for each of those, but we did want to give you one big dial where you could say, I want the highest fidelity possible, but still get good frame rates, or I want the absolute best performance possible. So this was a big deal. You should basically be hitting 60 FPS minimum at all times on Battlefield 6, regardless of your settings, but you could always optimize that further if you wanted to. IGN then asks, what are we looking at the PS5 Pro? What's that comparison? Battlefield 6 devs say for PS5 Pro, the main thing is that we run everything at a higher resolution. I've got my own chart up here on fidelity. We run at 4K instead of 1440, and on performance mode, they run 1620p, I think, instead of 1280p. Basically, you can run it at a higher resolution and still hit the same quality. That's the short answer, they said. I believe PS5 Pro will also run at a higher frame rate, so higher resolution and higher frame rate in that performance mode compared to PlayStation 5. IGN then asks, I'm assuming the Xbox Series X is comparable to the PS5 performance and quality options, but looking at the Series S, I know there are some fears that Battlefield 6 may have some muddy visuals. How does the Series S compare? Is that a stable 60 FPS? How does that look in general? And Battlefield 6 devs say, to be clear, we have one mode on Series S because this is a less powerful console. We don't offer performance and quality as separate options, but it does run very solidly at 60 frames per second at 1080p, and that was their goal. So performance and stability should be very consistent regardless of what console you are on. Of course, keeping in mind this is current gen only, and then being able to really optimize for this tech probably helped out a lot, rather than having to cater to Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and try and tweak things there even more. After that, IGN asks, were there any challenges or hurdles that you had to overcome when developing Battlefield 6 for the Series S specifically? Were there any compromises made to ensure the game worked on this platform as well as others? And to this, they responded and said, there were some obstacles. It was a less powerful system, obviously. That's the biggest challenge for us. Memory was one that was a little bit interesting. I think it was 8 or 10 gigs of memory, much less than other consoles, also less than our mid-spec PC. So that was the biggest challenge, making sure we could actually fit levels into the memory of the Series S. We did have to tune some levels and make some changes to make sure that happens, and so obviously we turned down the fidelity settings on the Series S to hit performance targets and to lower that amount of memory there. So if you are a Series S player in specific, your game might function and look a little bit different than other versions of the game. Just a heads up there. We also got a lot of crossplay talk in this interview as well, and we do get some really specific details here. We talked about this a little bit in a video the other day with some of their initial answers. This goes a little bit more in depth though. IGN asks, crossplay has become a pretty standard feature across the industry, and Battlefield 6's version is that I've seen described as preferred crossplay. Can you walk me through that feature on consoles? Is crossplay customizable at all, or is it just a toggle as on and off? And to this, we get the response, crossplay generally, what we have on console is a simple toggle that's actually in-game. Not every product that launches has that available to players. Some players have to dig through option menus and turn off crossplay like on the Xbox or something. A little bit of shade there at Call of Duty, who make you go through and actually do it in your console if you really want the full cross playoff experience. They're going to say we have it in game, it's just a toggle on and off. When it comes to preference input, and we have just what it sounds like. If you're a console player, we're looking for other console players in a set time frame, and then if we need to fill the lobby up more, we'll look towards PC players, but it is a console first priority. We're very confident but also keen as to what crossplay means for Battlefield 6. We've gone the extra mile and put in a lot of terms of balancing the inputs, understanding where the inputs lie in terms of relationship to general plays, but also general performance and what they're good at and maybe what they also lack as well. We've completely redone aim assist from our Battlefield 2042 version. We've added aim assist for what we call our combat triangle now, and that's infantry versus inventory, infantry versus vehicles, etc., to give that cohesive experience if you are on controller compared to maybe something that's a little bit easier on keyboard and mouse. So we're very dedicated to crossplay. We're trying to nail that across multiple vectors. Then again, IGN asks, so is crossplay default on or default off? And devs say, yes, it is default on. You're going to have to go out of your way to turn that off if you do not want crossplay enabled. IGN says you've explained it as an on-off situation. I've seen calls for console-only crossplay. Is that something you guys see and consider? Is there any potential for that? And Battlefield 6 devs say console-only crossplay happens if you turn it off. When you flip that switch, then you get basically console-only crossplay. We don't fill with any PC players. So even if you are on PlayStation and you turn crossplay off, you'll still get Xbox players, but you won't get any PC players to avoid any potential cheaters there. And speaking of cheaters, that's a Paul Blart Mall Cop segue into the next question from IGN here. Battlefield, Call of Duty, and a lot of military shooters out there have been notoriously affected by cheaters. Obviously, it's a very big talking point right now. What can you say to console players to reassure them that they won't have to deal with cheaters on PC if they have crossplay turned on? And here's what the devs say. I guess what I can say is that we're taking cheating extremely seriously. Obviously, it's much more prevalent on PC than on console, but we are taking a lot of effort putting work on prioritizing fighting against cheaters. We've got Secure Boot, we've got Javelin, our new anti-cheat system, which is required in order to play. So we're doing a lot on the PC side to clamp down on the cheating. We've got a whole team within Battlefield dedicated to the anti-cheat, which includes engineers, analysts, and others reviewing players and banning them, also figuring out what the latest cheats are. Then there's a dedicated team at EA working on the anti-cheat as well. We covered this again in our video the other day. That's what I can say now. We know that we never win against cheaters fully. Cheaters will always be there. It's this never-ending cat and mouse game. So I can't promise that there's zero cheaters, but we know that this is incredibly important and we're being extremely aggressive. You don't want to play a game and feel like you ran into a bunch of cheaters. So I hope console players are confident enough that what we're doing allows them to play with cross-play on for that reason. And if they don't want to, they can just simply turn it off. Another question from IGN here. The beta test went over really well as far as I can see. I think it was a really reassuring moment for a lot of fans. What were some of the takeaways from those tests and how they result in a better Battlefield experience at launch? To this, the devs respond and say, from a feedback standpoint, like you said, the general sentiment was very positive. It was nice, number one, to have players, live players outside of labs to give us feedback. There were a lot of input discussions. When are we going to go with aim assist from a live standard product? Where are we going to go with weapon balancing? Where are we going to go with anything in terms of crossplay? Again, input discrepancies. We ultimately want whatever platform, whatever input you choose to have the best Battlefield experience possible. And that rings true with our team, and that rings true with the product as a whole. So there's a lot of discussions about active tuning, changing up loadouts. You saw discussion about bringing Recon's respawn beacon and moving that to Assault, and that's a byproduct of the open beta. That's an understanding of what players wanted, and that's based on active feedback that we got. A lot of those discussions are still active and will continue to happen post-launch as we move towards a live product. They also go on to say the open beta was not the first time we started collecting data. Obviously, since we do have Battlefield Labs, it's a much smaller player set, but it's still real players. We sent out a massive amount of invites there and got good information from that. In a smaller vein, we've, along with Battlefield Labs in the open beta, been collecting performance data, stability, and crash data. We also have identified performance fixes or crashes that we need to fix. So we're using it to improve our launch and our plan. Obviously, all the qualitative feedback we got from the open beta, we're going to react to a bunch of that. We're not going to do every single thing a player asks for, but we're hearing what people are asking for and trying to make the best decisions and improving our performance and stability as well. So they're very excited based on the feedback that they got from the beta to really fine-tune things. things, which obviously very good news there. Another question, I think there were a few specific talking points that came out of the beta. There was a lot of talk about maps being too small. There are more maps in the launch build of the game, but I'm wondering if some of those maps that we saw, the team looked at feedback and said, we're going to rearrange some of these, we're going to make some of these maps feel less cluttered. What's going on with that? The maps were too small. In hindsight, maybe we should have put one of the bigger maps in the beta so we didn't get that feedback, but we've always been planning on doing bigger maps. We recently tested some of the bigger maps in labs, and there were a bunch of reasons we picked those maps that we did for the open beta, including partly the maps that were furthest along and the most ready to show in the open beta. So I don't think we need to react to the maps not being big enough quite yet by making changes to the small maps. Those are small maps by design. We do have those big maps, those big experiences. We did run them on labs the last few weekends, so we've gotten feedback on those. They also say they looked at maps via game mode. If an MCOM on a certain map was a little bit too close or was in an incorrect position that they deemed, there have been changes in that regard to smooth out the overall gameplay experience. We want to make sure that each map shines and that there are different choke points. There's rough spots that they're going to go through and really focus on as well there. So again, they are actively live sort of reacting to map design, and we might see things even shift post launch as well, if I had to guess. We do also get some server browser talk and further clarity here. IGN asks, one of the updates you guys recently had was the server browser, and things like that were going to be looked at in Portal. How has that gone? Is the server browser in Portal going to be ready at launch? They say generally the tests have gone well. We put out that Portal will have a server browser, then there will be verified experiences. They keep saying verified instead of official, and I think that's a little bit confusing to some players, myself included. Like, are you confirming official servers will be in the server browser? Why are you using the term verified so intently here? They also go on to say, I think the answer to your question, generally, people are saying they want a server browser. We know they want it. We're going to give that to them. One of the challenges is when people say, I want a server browser, it means different things to different people. So we're trying to figure out, okay, what are the best ways we can give people, the most people, what they want, and is it healthy for the game? I can't tell you exactly where we're leading and heading with all of this, but we still have that server browser experience. We think it's going to be something that most players are going to be happy with. So if you want, you can click a button, jump into a game. You can go look for a specific game in a specific server. We're going to have a lot of options. There's also the customized search that we saw between the two open betas, that coming online, that helped a lot as well, and that's going to be available there as well. IGN also asks them this, which I thought was kind of interesting. This game has been in development for years. What are some of the challenges that the team has had to overcome in the long road to Battlefield 6? This one, more than others in recent history, really feels like a very important game in the series, and there's been a lot of different leaks, rumors, inside information that have surfaced saying like everything is riding on Battlefield 6. If this game does not do well, there's a lot of potentially very bad things that are going to be the fallout for Battlefield and for EA potentially. So they say, for a long time, we've really had to nail this Battlefield. We learned a lot of lessons from 2042 because that launch did not go well. I like the self-admission there. The game wasn't performance stable. There were things that we weren't listening to players on that they wanted. I think the challenge has been first to build a stable and performing game, to figure out a plan and a path for how we get information from players. That's where labs comes from. We got to make sure that we're putting the game in front of players and getting feedback from them. So we've got huge farms of PCs and consoles to test performance and stability. But overall, the biggest challenge has just been the scale and the scope of the game that we're building, trying to aim for that lofty 100 million player goal, of course. In the past, Battlefield was built primarily by DICE with assistance from Ripple Effect and Criterion and some other studios along the way. But this time, we're building it as all 4 studios working together. We're building it across the world. It has some rough edges. It's got some challenges where we've messed up on things, but we've also been able to combine the expertise of, obviously, DICE with all of their deep expertise in Battlefield. Studios like Criterion and Motive with their deep history of single-player games and racing games and the wide open worlds that they have, then Ripple Effect with the Portal background. We've been able to combine all these with the different ideas and different expertise, so it's been a huge challenge, but it's also awesome to see all of that come together. From a design side, a lot of it's just been testing theories and improving them. It's been a lot of player-driven feedback. It was also a post-mortem look at 2042. Where do we hit from crossplay, aim assist, weapon balance, gunplay? What do we move on from that? We obviously, again, learned a lot from 2042. What can we elevate? Did we do that right? Did we do that wrong? Let's take a step back and really analyze there. We have multiple play tests a day at this point. We have a very heavy emphasis on controller playtesting now because that's a huge part of this crossplay puzzle, and that piece is something we really want to deliver on as well. So they're definitely, very aware that they screwed up big time last time, and they can't really afford to get this one wrong. IGN responds and says, a lot of that info is reassuring for someone like me who was there for the Battlefield 4 launch. I do wonder if maybe you could get more specific for those people who have seen Battlefield's history and have seen those troubled launches here and there. What can you say to reassure console players specifically who are worried about jumping in day one? And the devs say, I can say we've been thinking about console and the console experience from the very start. It's been a top of the line thing, again, going back to the start there, where heavy emphasis on console performance. We have to build out this game as if it was primarily made for console players. Obviously, we're still thinking about PC players, but in the past, Battlefield was built as a PC game and then ported to console, and it probably felt like that. That's not the case this time. We've been saying here in Office in the Ripple Effect team that this was the secretly console first game, so they really are going all in on the development and making sure console here is a major priority. IGN then asks, I think Battlefield 6 has a particularly interesting rollout for a Battlefield game. Specifically, I feel like there have been a lot of leaks, small and big. I'm wondering, how does EA feel about leaks like that? We covered this a little bit in our video the other day, but they essentially are saying here that they knew the second they went forward with labs, things were going to leak out despite the fact that they have NDAs and stuff. So they are fully prepared for that. They don't love that things are going to leak, but they also recognize that that's the cost of getting the player feedback as much and as early as possible as they can, so that they can actually adjust things in time for launch and have that fully ready there. Then we get a little bit of a dramatic question here, a little bit of a spicy question saying, the Call of Duty team appears to be backing away from including goofy skins in Black Ops 7. It's, I feel like, all anyone can talk about, even in the Battlefield community, because you guys conversely double down on gritty realism. How does it feel for the team to see other shooters backtracking from goofy aesthetics while Battlefield sticks to its guns? Does it feel like this commitment to a more grounded shooter is paying off? And while I think a lot of this has been good news so far, there's part of this answer that has me a little bit skeptical. The devs say, I think we're very happy with where we are. We want to be a gritty, realistic shooter. Other games can be whatever they want to be. We're not Fortnite. That's pretty goofy, but the game's also pretty good. So I think we end up where we're pretty happy with where we're at. We are gritty, grounded, and we're a realistic shooter. That's what we intend to be. And that's what the game is going to look like for a while. For a while, huh? So what happens after a while? Are we going to start getting Beavis and Butthead in Battlefield? I don't think it'll ever go to those lengths, but I think that's an interesting way to end that answer there for sure. We're going to have to keep an eye on that one as time goes on. Moving on, another pretty controversial topic here. IGN says auto spotting is another topic I see brought up. Is that being tweaked at all? Is it going to be like what it was in the beta? How are you guys looking to address that? The devs say, we actually just talked about this and submitted fixes and changes for it literally this last week. We've reduced the range and overall we've reduced the power. We found out that a lot in the open beta that was very strong. Really, players ended up just shooting Doritos, light environments, dark environments. They were just, hey, aim with a Dorito, you're gonna hit something. We don't want that for Battlefield, so we've definitely reduced the duration and the range. Everything across the board is really to hit that system and align it more appropriately with what we want. So it's important to ping players, but it's gotta be an active part of Battlefield. We can't just be a fire and forget sweep across the whole thing and everyone's lit up there. So yes, the pings are getting a slight nerf. IGN also asks, I think my favorite and a lot of my friends' favorite joke was the meme where a player spawns, they look up in the mountains and there's a billion sniper glints. I'm curious what you guys think when you see a meme like that. Do you think that's so funny, or is it like, oh, we don't want players to have that feeling? The devs say it's kind of both. I thought it was hilarious. Obviously, we need to fix some things and tune some things, so it was funny to see players react in a humorous way to those, but it's also really good feedback at the same time. From the design team, we love sending those around internally. It's really funny, and it's like, hey, we still have work to do, but also we know that the sniper glint stuff was maybe a little bit too strong from that, so we stepped it back there. Another confirmation that there are some balancing changes already confirmed. IGN goes on to say, I have to imagine it's quite a balancing act deciding when to take these funny things out or just tweak them. I have friends who played the beta who never played Battlefield, and they couldn't get into it until they figured out you could kill players with defibs. Those fun moments like that, I'm sure, weave their way into the game all the time, and they sort of go to say, yeah, it's one of the coolest part of Battlefield. It's sort of how open you can be and how you can play it in so many different ways. There's been some great clips from the beta, especially when it comes to funny physics and interactions, a tank blowing up and then the whole top spinning. We've had discussions about, should we fix that? Does it look unpolished? And we've decided on a lot of those things, we just keep them because they're funny. So I actually kind of like that they're not taking it too serious. Like some funny things like that, maybe like when you shotgun somebody and their body ragdolls ridiculously far. I think that's personally hilarious, and I'm quite okay with that stuff being in the game here. And then one final question, they say another talking point I've seen a lot is about open and locked classes. What do you guys think about that discussion when you see so many people who want classes to be locked and things like that? And the dev site's philosophy at the end of the day: we don't really want to make a decision and pigeonhole how you experience Battlefield. I know we're supporting both open and closed weapon sets in Portal and in different game modes. We ran a giant telemetry data collection test in the open beta. We posted those results, so it's ongoing. It's going to evolve. But from a design side, we don't want to make that decision for the players. We want players to play Battlefield how they see fit. IGN follows up and says, is there anything else you want to drop before the game ends up launching? And they say, internally from the beginning, our goal was to make the best Battlefield ever. I think we did that. This Battlefield is amazing. It's huge. The single player is awesome. The multiplayer is amazing. In general, we're very, very excited for launch. So this is some of the most in-depth sort of back and forth that we've got for Battlefield 6 thus far. I'm not sure if we'll get anything more detailed like this until launch, or even after launch for that matter. So some pretty cool insight here. I have the link to the full article, full interview in the description below if you want to check it out for yourself and reread through anything there. But that is going to wrap things up for this video. If you guys enjoyed, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out to always stay up to date with all things going on in Battlefield. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.